Hall & Wilcox acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands on which this podcast is recorded. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and to all First Nations people joining us today.
I really encourage graduate lawyers at Hall & Wilcox to throw themselves into all aspects of work and firm life. I think it is crucially important to develop strategies to ensure that you don't allow your work to become all-encompassing to the detriment of things like your family, friends, health, and outside interests.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode in our Living the Law Grad Life podcast. My name is Ariana.
My name is Sean, and we are your hosts for this podcast.
Work-life balance is prized very highly at Hall & Wilcox. We believe in bringing your whole self to work. One of our hallmarks is stay true, which means to be authentic to the core. We offer flexible working, which we already offered before COVID, and is now an accepted part of working at the firm.
Joining us today to discuss this topic is Jake Ulgens. He's a commercial dispute resolution partner based in Melbourne, the national graduate partner, and someone who does some pretty interesting things outside of work, including running a brewery and playing in a band. Welcome, Jake. Jake, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career here at Hall & Wilcox?
Sure. Well, Sean and Ariana, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a real pleasure. I'm a partner in the Melbourne office of Hall & Wilcox, and my practice is in commercial litigation. I assist clients in managing complex commercial disputes and act in regulatory investigations and proceedings, particularly involving the financial services sector. As you mentioned, I'm also the national graduate partner at Hall & Wilcox, which means I'm the partner responsible for overseeing our early careers program at the national level. My primary focus in that capacity is making sure we're doing everything we can to attract and retain the best Hall & Wilcox clerks and graduates, and ensuring that the clerks and graduates have a really rewarding and meaningful clerkship and graduate experience. I came to practice law a little later than some. I did a double degree in arts and music straight after high school and only made the decision to study law a few years after that. I wasn't someone who always knew they wanted to be a lawyer, though it was an option I had considered for some time, being a naturally argumentative person by temperament. But I had reached a point where I was a little bored with what I was doing and I wanted a real intellectual challenge, so law it was. So I joined Hall & Wilcox in 2009 as what was then somewhat unfortunately described as a trainee lawyer. Back then, trainee lawyers undertook 5 rotations across a 12-month period. I enjoyed all of them, but I saw myself primarily as a litigator, and I ultimately settled in the commercial dispute resolution team. And I joined the Hall & Wilcox partnership in 2018.
Thank you so much, Jake. And I've had the pleasure of working with you during my rotation in commercial dispute resolution, and I think your practice is really, really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do in financial services and what actually drove you to practice in this area?
Sure. So in terms of what drove me to practice in the area, through university, I enjoyed participating in moots. I'd always been very interested in exploring the art of persuasion, formulating arguments and presenting them in a way that gives your client the best chance to have a judge decide the case in their favour. So litigation was always front of mind for me. I guess I also really enjoy the variety of work I'm exposed to as a commercial disputes lawyer. There's never a dull moment. Every day there's something different, and even now I'm constantly learning new things about different products, different industries, unusual areas of law. So on any given day, I might go from assisting a client in preparing for an interview in a financial services regulatory investigation to settling advice on a complex partnership dispute, working on proceedings involving allegations of corporate fraud, assisting a client in a pro bono defamation proceeding, negotiating a settlement of a contractual claim, through to advising on administrative review proceedings. So it's very broad, very diverse. It's perhaps not for everyone. In a sense, the breadth and variety of work means you need to be comfortable being constantly outside your comfort zone, but I guess I wouldn't have it any other way. I really enjoy also being able to work closely with colleagues in other areas of the firm, including our market-leading financial services team. So that's something I really enjoy. Collaboration is something we do really well at Hall & Wilcox. You can't know everything yourself, and when you're dealing with novel and complex legal and factual issues, it really is so important to have good partners and other practitioners around you who are genuine subject matter experts. And obviously financial services is a very complex and specialised area, so I'm very grateful to be able to work closely with my colleagues in that area. I find I'm really energised by a tough litigation context where there are complex issues at play. Got good, clever opponents. I get great satisfaction acting in high-profile and high-stakes cases, and enjoy the strategic elements of litigation. So that's why I do what I do. That's why I enjoy commercial disputes, and why I ultimately chose to practice in this area.
So, Jake, you told us a little bit about your role as the National Graduate Partner. To elaborate on that, I thought to ask what your National Grad Partner role involves, and what does being the National Graduate Partner mean for you?
Sure. I think our early careers program at Hall & Wilcox is a really terrific program and has been for a long time now. A really significant amount of effort goes into making the program a success. I certainly personally benefited greatly from my own involvement in an earlier incarnation of the program nearly 15 years ago, back when Hall & Wilcox was solely a Melbourne-based firm. My role as National Graduate Partner is fundamentally about working with our early careers team, people and culture, and firm management to continuously improve the program, particularly given the firm's expansion and its now national footprint. I work with the local office graduate partners to make sure there's a consistent and consistently positive experience for graduates across our various offices, and with a view to ensuring the transition from graduate to lawyer is as smooth and ultimately successful as possible. I don't think you can overstate the importance of a graduate program. So many Hall & Wilcox partners, including myself, started as Hall & Wilcox graduates. Our graduates are the future leaders of the firm, and it's a real privilege for me to have a role that allows me to contribute in a meaningful way to the continued success of that program.
Thank you so much, Jake, for sharing. I think both Sean and I can attest the program is fantastic, and we really hope that this podcast encourages more people to join the firm at the paralegal, clerk, and hopefully grad level as well. Talking a little bit more about your interests outside of work now, you are someone who really does practice work-life balance. Can you tell us a little bit about your other business, which is Moondog Brewery?
Sure, Ariana. Maybe before I talk brewery business, I might just comment on the concept of work-life balance.
Sure.
I know some people dismiss the distinction on the basis that work is part of life, and it is. And like most things, it's more nuanced than identifying some bright line between your professional career and your personal life. Your colleagues will hopefully be your friends, as will your clients, and your friends may well become clients. So you may pursue personal interests in a work context, such as playing your chosen sport in a work competition. So the line, such as it is clearly blurred. But I would say, particularly in the legal profession, where the work can be very hard and absorb a lot of your energy, and the hours are sometimes long, I think it is crucially important to develop strategies to ensure that you don't allow your work to become all-encompassing to the detriment of things like your family, friends, health, and outside interests. If you can maintain all of those things, you'll be a better, more rounded and interesting person, and ultimately, I think, a better lawyer. So that interaction of all the different parts of or components of life will be something deeply personal to everyone, but that is really what work-life balance means to me. Putting definitional considerations aside, I'm not sure I'd hold myself up as a paradigm example of someone who has a perfect work-life balance. it's a constant juggle, and sometimes I manage the balance pretty well, I think, but other times I'm acutely aware I don't. But what I can talk about is my own experience in maintaining my interests, business and personal, while maintaining a busy practice as a lawyer and partner at Hall & Wilcox, and how those wider interests have ultimately intersected with and benefited my legal practice. So Moondog, myself, my brother Josh, and a mate of ours from high school, Carl, founded the Moondog Brewery at roughly the same time as I started as a trainee lawyer with Hall & Wilcox. We'd been brewing at home for many years, and we had the same dream that many amateur brewers have of starting a brewery, but I guess the difference was we decided to actually do it. We developed an interest in more boundary-pushing, unusual and interesting beers, and we saw an opportunity to really run with that type of beer and produce what others in the Australian beer market were not at that time really interested in pursuing. So we were focused on unique, unusual beer styles, high alcohol, imperial stouts, barrel-aged beers, sour beers, all sorts of quite interesting adjuncts, so we were a little naive, I guess, about what running a business would be like, but we threw ourselves into it. It was very hands-on at first. It was only the three of us trying to create a profitable business, and it was difficult, particularly early on, with balancing full-time work with also trying to bottle and brew beer late at night and on the weekends. But gradually, as we developed that business, we were able to employ some staff. We opened our first venue in 2014 in Abbotsford, and then a big step up came in late 2019, just before COVID hit, when we launched Moondog World in Preston. Since then, we've expanded into producing seltzers and other drinks, and we're in the process of establishing 3 new venues around Melbourne. So it's been a really fascinating journey. I've learned a lot about business from being involved in it, both from a legal perspective in advising the business and just the basic mechanics and raising capital, all the sorts of things that I find myself advising my clients about. Going through that experience directly has really benefited my ability to practice, and I guess my empathy and understanding of the process of how you are, what the challenges are and what the drivers are as a business owner. I think I'm a better lawyer as a result of my involvement with Moondog. Moondog's also a client of Hall & Wilcox, and a number of my Hall & Wilcox partners are investors as well. So there's a real overlap and symbiosis there. So finding the time to pursue that has been, and continues to be a balancing, juggling act. And I think one of the key things to do to ensure that you can maintain outside interest, including being involved in what's now a very successful high-profile business, is just to make sure that you structure your time in a way that works for you, that you set aside time to do the things that you need to do for your business, and make sure that you're also doing your client work and all the other things that go along with being a lawyer. And where there's an overlap or a clash, just finding ways to manage these things well in advance. And as I say, it's a constant juggling act, but I think I've probably managed it okay. But it's been a really terrific experience, and I'm really grateful for the support that Hall and Wilcox has given me in being able to pursue those those sort of outside interests while also maintaining my legal career.
That's fantastic, Jake. And on top of the many hats you wear, I understand that you play in a band called the John Hutchinson Experience. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and what that is?
Yeah, sure. So, look, I used to play a lot of music when I was younger. I'm a classically trained violinist, but I also played in a number of rock bands throughout high school and university. Music was something I always loved, but as so often happens, other aspects of life took priority. But I was out at lunch one day a couple of years ago, and it emerged in the course of discussions that two of my partners at Hall and Wilcox were playing in a band together. And this piqued my interest, and I took it upon myself to invite myself to audition. Since then we've been regularly rehearsing, irregularly playing gigs. But it's just been a really terrific and enjoyable thing to sort of rediscover that passion for music, and again, finding the time to rehearse and organise gigs and promote them can be challenging, but it's been really great to have the support of the firm. We managed to get a really good cohort of the Hall and Wilcox people, including Ariana. You came to our most recent gig, and it's just really terrific that we get that support, and it's such great fun. And it's really been great to have that, or to be able to do that with colleagues. Music's a very social, or can be a very social experience, and being able to play together with colleagues and has just been a great experience, and looking forward to the next performance.
Thanks, Jake. I can really attest to that. The atmosphere was great that night, and it was lovely seeing my fellow co-workers outside of a work context. Now, circling back to the recruitment process and grad program, what advice would you offer to graduates starting out their career in the law? Not just work advice, but also how to get the right balance.
Look, as I think I may have said to you before, I really encourage graduate lawyers at Hall and Wilcox to throw themselves into all aspects of work and firm life. In relation to professional development, you should really take every opportunity to challenge yourself and expose yourself to new experiences, getting outside your comfort zone, putting your hand up to do that court appearance or that client call. These are things that are going to be new experiences, and can be a little stressful to go along to court and appear in front of a judge or a magistrate. But they're the sorts of things that really do you really learn so much from throwing yourself in the deep end like that. Hall and Wilcox has got a really broad range of social events and clubs, and so the graduates are really strongly encouraged to just get involved in that aspect of firm life. So many opportunities to make new friendships and connections with people, and no matter what your interests are, I'm sure there'll be a group of like-minded people at the firm who you can get together with, and be it sport or book club or music, a whole lot of different things that can bring people together, and really I'd really encourage you to do that. In terms of, I guess, managing the work-life balance, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are only so many hours in any one day. You need to think about the things that are most important to you, and make sure you do allocate time to do these things. And it can be very easy sometimes just to put off that social event because you've got a lot on at work. But I'd encourage you to just find ways to be able to do both. Sometimes it means that you might need to work a little harder one night in order to be able to go and do your social event the following night, or if you've got a band practice on a Wednesday night, as we sometimes do in the John Hutchinson experience, finding ways to manage the workload and client demands, work a little bit more intensely beforehand to get the work done, rather than taking the easier option of just cancelling. And so it does require a bit of discipline, I think, to really maintain those interests when you do have a lot on, work-wise or otherwise. But find the time to do it, and speak to people about the things that you have on. If you've got something that you really need to do, sometimes you might be able to get a bit more time to do that work, to accommodate your other commitments. So really identify what it is that you want to do, set aside the time for it, and then communicate to ensure that you can find a way that means you can get your work done and also maintain those broader interests.
Thank you, Jake. And thanks everyone for listening today. Do you have any burning questions about being a grad or clerk? We'll be hosting a Q&A episode later in the season where a group of Hall & Wilcox grads will answer listener questions. So please pop them in the Q&A box below this episode or DM us on Instagram, and stay tuned for the episode. As always, you can find our details on our website, which is hallandwilcox.com.au, or connect with us on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed today's episode, then rate, review, or follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
This podcast is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as such. You should always obtain legal advice about your specific circumstances.